the post-secondary education scam. So, from the perspective of the job seeker, post-secondary education really makes no sense. You spend $100,000 that you don't have and invest 4 years of your life learning nothing about what you're going to be doing in the job place. And so, but you need the degree if you want to get a decent job. So, uh, you're not learning how to do the job. They're going to teach you that once you get hired, right? You're just, you're learning history or Latin or whatever, mathematics. So why can't we just skip post-secondary education and go right into working? Well, that used to be what would happen. That's how it was. Out of high school, you get a decent job, they train you, and there it was. But what happened was the government got involved and started subsidizing post-secondary education in the name of egalitarianism. They guaranteed student loans for all people, and now basically post-secondary education is the bare minimum if you want to get anything beyond pretty much entry-level work. There's some fields like hospitality where it's not quite the same way, but for most fields, um, software development a little bit, but even then, it's very difficult to break in if you don't have post secondary. So they really want to see a degree, um, and the subsidization of post secondary education is kind of dubious in the first place because who goes to university? Well, it's overwhelmingly the children from rich families. So should we really be asking the taxpayer to subsidize rich families in their education? A study in England found that students from poorer backgrounds entered university at a rate of about 13%, whereas students from wealthier backgrounds and also certain communities, like Asian communities, um, at a rate of 50%. So we're asking poor workers to pay taxes to subsidize the education of children from wealthier families. So so what happened? Why is post secondary mandatory now? Well, because it's there, it serves as a very convenient sorting mechanism for employers. You've shown that you'll sit through 4 years of pretty boring lectures. You'll regurgitate that information. You'll do a series of complex tasks to at least a reasonable proficiency. Um, so this is not really a great sorting mechanism in terms of like finding the best employees or whatever who can do the best job, but it's free to the employer because the students and the government have all paid for it. So it's better than nothing, and it's free, right? So the employers are going to use it because it's there. Can sort of separate, the undesirables, people that aren't really good at following orders, or they're just going to quit, 6 months down the road, versus the people who can tough it out and follow directions for 4 years. If they'll do that, good chance that they can do that in their job as well. So the problem is that because this is basically the new bare minimum, uh, nobody's better off than they would have been had there been no post secondary. Like, uh, if everybody goes to post secondary, like okay, let's say only like 5% of the population went to post secondary, then they would be very much better off. Everybody else is sort of behind them in line, but not everybody can get to the front of the line. So basically you're in the same situation as you were before, except now you spent $100,000 on education. You're massively in debt, money you don't have for the most part for most people, and and then you've wasted 4 years of your life as well. You're in the same situation as you would have been before with no post secondary. Now you're just getting the job, um, and and most people that go to university or post secondary now in Canada, there's like a division between college and university. It's different for each country, but college is a little more vocational. Although that's sort of changing a bit too. Like there's more degree programs for colleges now. It's sort of the lines are merging a little bit. So most of the students who pursue post secondary aren't really that academically inclined. Some are, for sure, but most are just looking for a job. It's sort of you have to get post secondary now, so it's what you do after college. And a lot of them, like, the reading comprehension's not that great. Like, they can make fine workers doing a lot of good jobs, sometimes very rewarding, well paying, challenging jobs. They're just not super academically inclined, right? And that's fine. People don't have to be. It's not doesn't really matter. The modern world, the modern economy, you don't necessarily have to be super academically inclined to get ahead. You have to do your niche well, whatever it is, advertising, whatever, but you don't necessarily have to have a solid understanding of European medieval history or whatever. So, so for most people, this isn't really doing them any good. That's why you have like a lot of partying in university. A lot of them are on the parents' dime or the government's dime, and then also now a lot of the college programs and some of the university programs are sort of catering to this lowest common denominator because they want everybody to pass. And so the academic standards are slipping, and it's, you know, just pass them, keep them paying tuition, keep the whole sort of scam running, and it's really degrading the quality of the university experience as well. So if we just eliminated the government subsidies and the student loan programs and all that, and universities had to just sort of charge tuition, and if people wanted to go, they had to pay, then we would be back to how the system used to work. We would be back to, you graduate high school, maybe you do like a year of vocational training, then you just get hired, and they train you on the job. So, people wouldn't have to run up these massive student debts. They could be in a much better financial position. Leaving high school, getting into the workforce earlier, and just sort of learning on the job instead of going through this extra unnecessary post-secondary education. But the real reason for the whole post-secondary education and why it's become mandatory is because the result of this is that you have an extremely well-paid academic class. The postgraduate students, professors, teachers' assistants, wannabe professors. You have this intellectual elite who have very lucrative positions within the university system, and positions that do not take much of their time, so they can do research. They function as the priests of old used to function, which was they would rationalize the king's reign, and then as a result of that, they would share in the plunder of the state, the taxation. So today they rationalize the state's existence, and they have all this free time to pontificate on why government's so important, and they can they function as secondhand dealers in ideas. They they put out these rationalizations, justifications for why every new government spending program is great and why you could never cut spending, et cetera, et cetera. Why you have to aggrandize power to the state and basically could never reform anything. So that's the post-secondary scam. Basically, doesn't really do a lot of good for the students. For most of the students, um, it's they're basically babied, for 4 years, 4 extra years. Uh, they're not learning, how to do their jobs, and it functions as a sorting mechanism just to crudely separate, people who would be good hires from people who wouldn't. But in the absence of that, employers would just have to, do some aptitude tests or whatever, do interviews, um, and people would be able to just get good jobs out of college, no problem. There'd be, tens of billions of dollars that's being wasted by this ridiculous process, back in the economy. But the real purpose behind it is so that the intellectuals can rationalize the rule of the state and why high taxes and big government are important or whatever. So that's what's really going on.